When production began on the Saturn during the early 90s, the bigwigs at Sega wanted to make sure that the system launched with some stellar titles showing off the machine's 3D capabilities. One of those groups formed to handle this task will be known as Team Andromeda, led by Yukio Furusagi. And the title they would bring to the table for the Saturn launch would be the 3D shoot-'em-up game known as Panzer Dragoon. Consisting of only 15 people, Andromeda wanted to make a fully 3D arcade game, and influenced by titles like Space Harrier and Star Fox, set out to make a 3D shooter. But while these games would usually have you fly a jet or a spaceship or something, Furusagi and lead artist Manabu Kusunoki decided to have the character fly on top of an armored dragon, which was actually going to be the original name before deciding to translate it to German. They even seeked French artist Jean Giraud, aka Mobius, to design some art for the game, one of which was used for the Japanese cover.
So, we begin like any good game should with text! Yeah. The story is set thousands of years in the future after a great war between man and biologically engineered weapons, and since then, the human race has started to show some life again. One nation, known as the Empire, discover a large black tower filled with ancient weapons in hopes of saving humanity from the roaming creatures. But corruption befalls it, creating an imperial army set out to conquer. We're introduced to Keel, running with friends in a canyon before giving chase to some creatures, which lead to an ancient ruin before getting cornered by an even bigger creature. With his weapon useless against the beast, he is saved at the last minute from falling debris as two giant dragons battle it out. The battle between a black dragon and a blue dragon with his rider heats up before Black delivers a blow right through the rider's chest. With his last amount of strength, he reaches out to Keel by a psychic link, telling him to take his dragon and prevent Black from making it to the tower. This is where the gameplay begins. You fly on a predetermined path while aiming at oncoming enemies. You use A to shoot from your gun, and holding it down locks onto your target with the dragon's homing laser. Your enemies aren't just going to come from the front, however. Being a 3D game, enemies will be coming at you from all sides, so pushing the shoulders will rotate your view 90 degrees. But be careful, as you can't dodge when you're shooting from the side.
As you can see here, the design of the levels is actually fairly basic, with a lot of empty world, considering the Saturn's architecture was new to the team, and this was Furusagi's first year at Sega as a full-time developer. Even worse, the team wouldn't even get a proper finished Saturn dev kit until mid-1994, so they had to develop based on what they thought the final hardware would be, creating their own tools instead of the ones provided by Sega. And even when they got it, moving the game to the Saturn was even more difficult, with the best they were able to do is get the game up to 20 frames per second. But despite all the shortcomings and even missing the original deadline of the Saturn's Japan launch, Panzer Dragoon was one of the 6 titles released at the May launch of the Saturn in the US. As we all know, Sega decided to push forward the release date from September to May due to high demand, meaning third parties weren't ready yet. So Panzer Dragoon actually became the surprise hit of the Saturn launch. Two of the other launch titles were Sega's arcade hits Daytona USA and Virtua Fighter, which actually came packed in with the console. But Daytona had terrible clipping, and both had more chops than this cutting board. Not to mention both replay at the arcade, unlike Panzer Dragoon, which would be praised for its original gameplay and art design. In fact, after its showing at E3 1995, Team Andromeda was approached by none other than Steven Spielberg, telling them how impressed he was with the design. So it became apparent early on that Sega had a major hit on its hands, and Andromeda set out to work on two new Dragoon games, a sequel to the original and RPG. Because they already had an engine to work with, the sequel took less than a year to finish, and keeping with the German theme, the sequel will be known as Panzer Dragoon 2. 2 is 2 in German.
Despite being a sequel, 2 is actually set 20 years before the original and focuses on Lundy, a resident of a village that raises a species known as cooliers. But from time to time, a coolier will be born with a strange mutation, which the superstitious village promptly kills. But one day, Lundy discovers one who then decides to spare it in hiding and name it Lagi. Lagi was something special, having been born with wings. A year passes, and Lundy trains Lagi in secret to fly, when an ancient ship attacks and destroys Lundy's village. Lagi's throat then glows green, shooting lasers, revealing his mutation to be that of a dragon. 2 takes everything from the original and makes it even better. As well as having a much smoother frame rate and much more detailed levels, the game also features both land and air levels. But the biggest new feature is that new meter down there. Once it goes green, Lagi can unleash Berserk mode, and, well, just look.
Oh yeah. 1996 would be a huge year for Panzer Dragoon. Alongside 2, we would also see release of Panzer Dragoon Mini on the Game Gear in Japan, as well as the release of an OVA based loosely off the first game. Something about Kyo's lady getting abducted by a black dragon or whatever. And the voice work is,
My friend is dead, and my lady! I'll kill you! It's because of you that my lady's been— This means the man that flew with you before. He was a warrior, wasn't he? Dragon, you took quite a beating. Are you strong enough to keep fighting with me? That bastard! He's activated the tower! Blau! We must find Alita!
Let's just say, the only thing cheaper than anime in the 90s was its dubbing. But while 2's success was big, there wouldn't be a Panzer Dragoon Dre. Instead, over at Team Andromeda, they were working on something. Something big. Which we'll talk about next week. See you then.